Alrighty, good afternoon, everybody. Thanks again for joining today. Today's session, or to why ADA with UV, um, today's session won't be as long as some of the other sessions that you guys might have been a part of yesterday. I want this to kind of build the basis for what we will print um, later this afternoon. For those who were a part of the session yesterday afternoon where we printed the acrylic signs, that was a session where we try to try to encompass a lot of different attributes into a single demo, right? So that was the type of demo that would not only speak to folks in the awards industry, but clearly in the sign industry as well. So we had second surface prints with full graphics, and we talked about a lot of those things. We may have shared an ROI example or two. This session will focus on more on what our technology, our software, some of the comparisons against other methods for producing signs like this, and then we'll really get into some ROI examples. Okay. If you guys do have any questions, as always, just navigate to the bottom of your screen, hover over the More button, which is the three dots all the way to the right, and then at the top of that option, there'll be the chat feature. Okay. If I see that start to blink, I have no problem stopping. As I mentioned a bunch of times yesterday, or for the folks who are new on this session, we want to treat this like a trade show, right? So kind of quick to the point type of information. You get, you understand a little bit on how the technology functions. You understand how it can relate to your business, and then the rest of the week will allow you time to circle back to us and maybe request some samples, get some custom samples um, printed for you. Maybe you want to take a look at the ROI calculator that we have available for people to poke around with, and then come back with more questions as we progress through the week. So right now we have on the screen we have the description, right? So everyone's familiar with what they've registered for and what we're here to talk about today, and we'll kind of jump right into it. Again, everybody is on mute, so if you guys do have any questions, feel free to fire those along in the chat feature. So just like we spoke about in yesterday's session for printing acrylic signs, the ADA Braille sign market opportunity is huge. Not just for sign shops, but for engravers. I mean, you'll see countless publications that aren't necessarily dedicated to the sign shop. Writing content, producing content, recommending that their readers get involved in this market. The demand isn't going away, right? Anytime there's new construction or new construction or renovations that are occurring in public places, signs like this are needed. There are tools out there available for you, like Bid Clerk, or I believe it's called Construct to Connect. Those are tools online that allows you to go out to your prospective region and kind of set up searches where you will be notified when certain things go to bid, or some of the construction projects that are happening in your area. So it allows you to, a little bit of a clearer path forward to see where you can use your UV printer in a market like this. All right, and those are just a couple examples. There are a bunch out there. We have folks that provide signs into the medical industry. We have educational and collegiate institutions that are using the machine for on-campus signage. So there's a bunch of different avenues into the market, and it's growing more and more every year. As many are aware, if you would have seen our booth at this week's ISA show, if it wasn't postponed, the patented technology that we have to produce Braille signage would be kind of all over the place, right? We'd be printing samples on both machines. We'd have dedicated wall space to beautiful printed samples. And there would be this type of messaging kind of just scrawled all over any type of real estate that we had open in the booth, right? It's something that we're super proud of. A lot of people have worked very hard at this, and we've added patents as we've gone along here, right? As our machines and our technology has evolved, we've been adding patents further and further to further strengthen our IP. All right. And for the folks that didn't see this yesterday, I do always like to just draw people to that bold quote there. When using our patented technology, DCS printer owners can take comfort in knowing they are utilizing an innovative and patented process, right? Just like any other type of application or innovation that we push forward, that's all geared towards making customers more profitable, right? Or in this case, a competitive advantage. Before we, go on, if you guys are open for any what I call, with quotes, light reading, we're not shy about kind of sharing all the information. So if you go to our ADA Braille application page on our website, all of the patents are listed there. So if you just kind of want to see some of the things of what they are, feel free to poke around. We're not hiding anything. Again, it's something that we're proud of. It's something that we do protect, and it's a very popular application for us. So in terms of equipment, yesterday we we showcase our 1800S, but all of our models will be on showcase as we move through the week. Okay, depending on the model selected, there may need to be an additional ADA module um, purchased. So in the case of the BG that you see on the screen right now, that actually comes with the machine, right? So the machine is kind of set up the way you see it there with the vacuum table and the ADA Braille software. This is the machine that we will be using this afternoon. So it's a little bit slightly different than the machine that you see that you guys saw yesterday. So again, if you are free at 3 o'clock Eastern, I ask and I do urge you guys to join the next Braille demo that we have. All right. The machine on the screen right now is the machine we highlighted yesterday. So just like the BG that I just showed, a 12-inch by 24-inch print area, the BG has the vacuum table, and then it has a 2-inch height clearance with the vac table. If you were to take that off, it maxes out at 4. This option here has 6 and 15. Okay, and then we have the larger machine that'll be on display later this week. That's a 23.8 by 48-inch printable area with a couple different height options you see noted down in the bottom right-hand corner. Right, all of those machines do have the ability to produce Braille signage. They all are, and are all covered under our patents and the way they're worded, written, and the way they're conceptualized. So a lot of folks might ask, how does it compare to other technologies, right? And if there are folks on the call or customers like our Prinovators on the site, they will tell you that it's an extremely efficient way to produce Braille signs, right? Some of the folks on the call might be familiar with or currently producing signs with raster Braille, right, where you're inserting beads, you're lasering applique and stuff like that, and affixing that to the sign. That's a very manual process, right? There are a lot of steps in making that sign. So call it, depending on if you're combining steps or if you're not combining steps, it could be anywhere between 30 and 40 steps. Okay. When we had some of the experts and some of the folks who are very familiar with selling and operating engraving equipment, they came back to us and the way they listed out was 33 steps for making a sign. All right. So still a viable option for many sign shops, but it's completely labor intensive. And you're kind of zapped a little bit in terms of your creative ability, right? A lot of those signs are standard color, white on blue, black on white, that type of stuff with either a clear or a silver Braille dot. So you're kind of limited there. Photopolymer requires a massive upfront investment in terms of the amount of equipment that's needed, right? Because there's multiple stages and there's multiple pieces of equipment that are needed. Still a ton of steps, right? 15 steps for making a sign there, right? And you still lack the ability to do full graphics, right? You're exposing the material through the screens, and that is what is ultimately the raised portion of it. Now you can foil stamp the top of that to add some colors to your raised text. But in terms of what we did yesterday, and full graphic, full photos on the back of the products, or color matching a certain aspect, extremely difficult or almost impossible with the photopolymer process. All right, and again, folks that we have who we consider experts and work closely with us have that coming at about 15 steps to making the sign. Whether or not you combine some of them, so be it. But it's still a lot of steps. For those that saw the session yesterday, you saw how easy it was to create the sign. Right now, the sign like that Lodge one on the right-hand side there, that sign we printed and we showed yesterday on acrylic, right, where that photograph was printed on the back side of the material. Now, if it wasn't, or in the case of this afternoon's web demo, that's all first surface print, right? So you're doing it in 2 passes, right? And you guys can probably remember the steps. That's how few there were, right? It's design it in the software. The translation's already done for you. Load your material, set your head height, hit print home, and out comes your sign. Very simple, efficient, right? There are some art file manipulations that that may need to occur if you're importing a background like that wood grain one that you see, or in the case of that Lodge sample, the photograph. But those are easy steps. Those are minute in the grand scheme of things. But just in terms of building the depth and the Braille dots, all done in a very limited amount of steps, right? So efficiency, and you saw, granted, Kyle was kind of watching the machine yesterday because we want to be engaged in the demo. It's not something that needs to be babysat, right? I always try to stress that to people. That doesn't mean get in your car and go to Starbucks while the signs are printing, but you could work on your next batch, right? You could fill up your next jig. You can continue fabricating. You can continue designing. So you could let the machine do all the work for you. There's a lot of efficiencies to be had here, and it's something that we'll cover not only in this afternoon's demo, but on Thursday we have a customer session as well, and some of the folks there are heavy Braille users, and they'll be kind of sharing some of their experience on how easy it is, and some of the gains that they've been able to get from it. All right, so that's just kind of comparing the technologies. Again, if you guys do have any questions about how our technology fits into this and some of the steps that could be there, feel free to fire those along in the chat feature. I'll do my best to answer them. If for whatever reason I can't answer them, I will be on the call later this afternoon with Kyle Bolduck, who's our application specialist, and we can always fire them over to him and ask that he answer them for you. So just know that the chat feature is open if you guys do have any questions, and we'll continue to move on. So with the software yesterday, again, like we mentioned, we're trying to keep these sessions as fast as we can in treating it just like a trade show, right? Some of the schedule, not so much today, but yesterday, tomorrow, and Thursday, the turnaround time is rather tight in between sessions. So we don't want sessions running into it, right? We understand people have a business to run. So we wanted to just show you guys how easy it was to start printing signs yesterday. But do know that in the ColorByte software, there's a lot of features that that make sign creation easy. Right, there's templates, there's pictograms. We went through yesterday and we mentioned that it would stop you from using a non-compliant font. All of those types of things, in addition to the translation, is all encapsulated in the Braille module in the ColorByte software. Okay, for those who attended yesterday, or for those, this would be a refresher, but for those new folks, our software is made for our equipment, right? Our software does come, or at least a level of the software does come with all of the equipment, depending on the model that you ultimately purchase, right? And there are some specials in the month of April that allow you to kind of have all the software package with the with the monthly package. But that is a software that is developed for us by CADLink. If you guys are familiar with SignLab or EngraveLab, Digital Factory, you'll understand a little bit of the queue structure. You'll understand the way things and some of the simple tools are laid out. But there are a lot of features in the software that are specific to DCS's equipment and the method in which we lay down ink right in our profiles. So there's a front end of that, and there's a RIP, and again, that does come with a security device, and there's and that does include on all the packages. Sorry for starting over my words there. I do see that some questions are coming in. So the last slide on the software here, as we showed yesterday, fully customizable to print backgrounds in the software, right? That's going to be done in a different path, right? If you guys remember, Kyle was running through those, and that the photos in the backgrounds, they went to the default queue. All the raised portions went to the ADA queue, right? Very simple, labeled appropriately. We have the ability to translate into grade 1, grade 2, or California grade, right? So that was awesome. Yesterday, right after the session, we received a request from a guy from California who said, I would love to take a look at this. Please print me a sign with California Braille on it. It's something that we already had signed. We obviously already have signs created. I asked Steve in the applications room, so Kyle's colleague, to just take one of our current signs and flip the translation over to California, and that sample's already been sent out to the guy, right, for his review. So do know that we are here, and we do want to ensure that you guys have the ability to do that, right? If I mentioned yesterday, I think on a couple of the calls, we do have our Prinovators on our website. So if you guys have any questions, of specific customers, there's a lot of folks on there. So again, directcolorsystems.com, Prinovators in the main navigation. There are a lot of folks on there that have firsthand knowledge of producing signage and some of their requirements, and kind of some of the information that they share with prospective customers of theirs who want to implement or spec UV printing for ADA Braille signage. As we mentioned yesterday, and I kind of just ran over it a little bit here today, proper alignment and spacing is done in the ColorByte software. It doesn't mean that you need to use the ColorByte software to design your files, right? We get a lot of files from folks who are looking to purchase the equipment, and they could be in a PDF or AI, and they have spaced that out. But one thing in terms of support and translation, just make sure that we can't vouch for the translation software that you're using, right? We can vouch for what's in our software. So at that point, when you get into compliance, we know with if the sign's created in our software using the right print modes with a fully functioning machine, all of your compliant elements will be output to the standard, right? Software will give you a warning if you're not using a font. It will not stop you. Okay, that's a note. We've all kind of taken creative liberties with some signs, right? It happens, and you'd be shocked at some of the thin fonts that we get into the demo room. But the software will, put a flag up saying, hey, you might want to take a look at that. That's not a compliant font. All right, and as I mentioned, it does have preloaded templates for you. One note before we get into this, this portion, and I won't belabor this just because the information is already out there for you to review. But our friends at Erie Custom Signs, again, they're a good customer of ours. They're Prinovators, right? So that they're a reference site. Recently on Facebook, they put up a post, just urging folks to those involved with sign development, strongly urge to not only understand the history of Braille, but more importantly, the ADA rules, right? Outside of just the elements and the raised elements, for those who are kind of new to the game a little bit, there's a bunch of guidelines for sign size, how close elements can be to the edge of a sign, height, certain doors that need to be labeled, certain areas that need to be labeled twice, and all of those types of things are all in the ADA guidelines. Okay, I would highly recommend you guys familiarize yourself with that. There's some Cliff Note versions online, but if you're looking specifically at the guidelines in terms of the signage, it's Chapter 7 that you'll be looking at. Okay, it's talking about stuff, and I kind of grabbed a lot of the stuff here as it pertains to what we print. Right now, if you were to print all of these elements and you had the perfect spacing with the perfect height on a piece of aluminum, and then you sheared the sign too close to the edge of those letters, and you didn't maintain proper spacing, you would have a non-compliant sign, right? And I use that as an example to show you the printer can only, we can only control what the printer outputs, right? If you were to print that on a piece of gloss material, you would have a non-compliant font, right? Your sign element and your raised elements would be compliant, but there's other things that need to be taken into account outside of just the sign printing. Matte backgrounds, contrast in your sign design. All of those things are described in the Chapter 7 of the ADA guide. Okay, so you can just simply Google those standards. If you guys need a link, you're more than free to email me. I could either send you a PDF version of Chapter 7 or send you a guideline to the whole document. I believe it's 192 pages. So I wouldn't recommend printing it by any means. But if you are looking to get into this market, or if you are in this market, it always helps to familiarize yourself with some of the elements here. All right, talk about measurements and stuff like that. All of the spacing that's kind of shown here, all those types of things are handled for you in the ColorByte software when you're designing your sign in that front end and before sending it to the ColorByte RIP for printing on one of the DCS UV LED printers. Again, stroke thickness, character spacing, all that stuff is done for you guys. So I will pause here before we get into the ROI examples. I told you this one would go a little bit faster. We've gone for about 20 minutes. Again, normally these presentations go for 30. Chat feature is open, so if you guys have any questions about any of the technology or any of those types of things that we covered, not only our technology, but our machines, our patents, or how our technology compares to some other methods, I'll take a quick little pause here for 30 seconds and thumb through some of the questions if you guys have them. I see some things are just getting answered in there. Again, guys, no dumb questions. If you guys do have them, fire them along. For people who, or for folks who have not attended any of the sessions yet, or specifically did not attend the Braille session yesterday, I did not mention that all of the raised elements that we just went through, and to make a compliant sign, what makes our machine kind of unique and awesome outside of just the patents, is that all of the raised portions are done in a single pass. That's how much ink we're able to jet, and that's how accurate we're able to jet the ink. Okay, so you're getting all of your compliant depths, right? And it's two different heights for the dots compared to the letters. You're getting all of those types of elements printed in a single pass. Then it's coming back and it's printing the color of the background on top of that. All right, so very efficient, very easy. These are some of the ROI examples, and I just grabbed a bunch of stuff out of the calculator that we showed yesterday. Again, you guys will see it momentarily here. There are some constants here, right? We try to make it, we try to level load it a little bit. All of the demand, 150 signs a month, right? There's plenty of opportunity out there to do more than that. There's plenty of opportunity to do less than that. But just for the sake of the ROI examples, we're using 150, just so you can kind of see where the profit potential really starts to take off when you move away from your standard pictogram signs or standard aluminum signs to the the more high-end acrylic signs. All right, labor costs for an operator set at $20 an hour. Depending on where you are, might be a little bit high, might be a little bit light. So that's an editable field for anyone who's using the calculator. The monthly cost of maintenance, I believe it's about $140 on the small machine, right? That's based on 4 capping stations and 1 print head a year. The capping station is a requirement to change about every 80 to 90 days, right? It's not necessarily the amount of imprints. It is the duration of exposure to the ink, right? So that's considered a consumable item, or these capping stations. They're about $90, all right? Nothing that's wild. And then we do tell folks, at least from a planning perspective and an ROI perspective, plan on 1 print head a year. It doesn't mean you're going to go through a print head every year. We have people who will go 2 years without burning up a print head. As long as you're, I hate to use the same example that I used yesterday, but as long as you're operating the equipment with the lights on, right? You can't, you saw Kyle yesterday tape the side of the acrylic to set the head height. These are all just simple kind of, I don't necessarily want to say common sense, but they're all types of tips and just operating the machine with proper protocol that will help extend the life of your print head. And we have folks who will go through a print head, in 6 months just because they've had head strikes and they overspray, and they're not really paying attention to what they're doing. No different than a car in that regard. They're not doing their weekly maintenance in terms of lubrication. So there are a lot of things there that can sway that number. But for the sake of the ROI example, we're using one, right? And then the printer packages I did update for some of the April pricing. So I did update them if you guys have seen this from yesterday. Before we do get to the other examples, not only our hotel example that's at the end, but the next few examples, the price points are low on them, right? They're anywhere from 70 cents a square inch to, I believe we used $1.30 or $1.50 a square inch. And they're low for a reason, right? I use the low retail price points to show the folks, even in a wholesale environment, the profit potential is huge. But then you take the bottom portion of this slide and you look at it, and that piece on the left there, that's just a standard blank. We printed a textured logo. We printed a flat wood grain background with a full pictogram, raised letters, and then you can't see it in that picture because it's a little far, but there are clear braille dots on that sign, right? And this is from an expert that, I respect his opinion. He has tons of customers in the California area, and he told me depending on the volume, there's the price you could be looking at for a 6x8 sign with a full graphic like that, right? For a 6x8 sign, that's $2.60 a square inch retail. So it's all over the map, right? It doesn't mean that folks, and pick anywhere, pick Illinois or Indiana. You might not be able to get those prices there. We might not be able to get those prices here in Connecticut. Maybe our prices are way lower. Maybe in New York City, they're even higher than that. But so we all try to use this as a guide. When we get to our hotel example, I believe we use $1.75 a square inch. And when we've given this presentation in the past, that's not a value that we've ever had a lot of pushback on, right? I know I've kind of rambled on a little bit before we've gotten into the ROI example. I just want folks to understand that there's a lot of room here, right? There are folks who are doing wholesale. There are folks who are doing retail. There are folks who are doing a combination of both, and it's all priced accordingly. Okay. Some customers might not even use a square inch sign, but it fits the ROI calculator rather nicely. All right. And obviously there's quantity breakdowns and stuff like that. So if you guys do have any questions about that, feel free to reach out to your rep in your area, or myself or anyone on the team that I'm a part of. We'd be happy to walk you through any of those examples. If you guys do have samples printed by DCS, it's a good idea to kind of run these through the calculator. So if you guys do need it, let me know, and I'd be happy to send it to you. So for a simple 6x8 sign, right, this is going to be a pictogram sign, and I'll show you where we did print the background. Because we're printing such a large pictogram on a 6x8, and it's a men's room sign, you'll see the picture momentarily. Those are 10-minute signs, right, on the small BG machine. Okay. With the printer package you see there noted on the bottom, and some of the other constants that we talked about, you see a small 70 cents per square inch retail price, right? A pretty generic sign for compared to what we've shown in the past. So even at $6 an hour, to meet your demand of 150 signs a month, you are printing all of those signs in 25 hours of printing, right? So just over half a week's worth of time. And compared to what we just showed for the finance charge or the printer package, you're at 188% return on investment. The profit potential is huge here. All right, completely different than the examples that we showed during yesterday's award or plaque. It's just it's not even apples to apples at this point, right? And this is where UV allows you to kind of really take it to the next level in terms of profit production, or expanding product line. We're moving to the acrylic, specifically the Lodge sample that we showed, right? Not only on the previous slide, but you would have seen it on yesterday's demo, and I'll make sure Kyle shows it again today for the folks who haven't joined us. Those are 12-minute signs, right? Because now you have a full background printed on the backs of those materials, right? But we've gone from 70 cents to even just a safe zone of $1 a sign. Again, same exact demand at 150 a month, same printer, and you're slightly higher, right? So you're 190%, right? Some would argue that you could sell that sign for $1.50 a square inch with that level of detail and custom graphic on the background. Now your ROI percentage is soaring well past 250% based on increasing the selling price point per inch there. Okay, you kind of see just the difference here. If you were to move to the larger machine, and it's something that we'll highlight later in this week, right? The 7200 sign that you'll see momentarily. You're doing 22 of these signs, right? It's 3 by 11, so a little bit of a different setup in terms of size. And you're doing 22 an hour on that larger machine at that size. Really, when we talk later in the week about full-on production, the speeds will kind of are staggering a little bit, right? The costs are a little bit different. You can see the price of the printer package rises just with the overall size of the machine, but selling those at 33, even at $33 a sign, you're printing all those signs in just 9 hours of printing, and you're still at 180% ROI. All right, it'd be completely different if that was when we bump down now into our hotel example. All right, so again, a couple quick ones, a couple ones we would have shown yesterday. If you guys do have any questions about it, let me know. I'd be happy to stop and check the chat. I do have Adam Torville, who's our senior marketing specialist, on the line. So if you guys do submit a question and it's not one that I've answered, Adam might be feverishly typing an answer back to you. So just stand tight. We'll make sure everyone gets the information that they need, and I'll leave the chat open after we close up here in a few minutes. This was a cool project that we did, right? We had a big presentation in Arizona earlier this year to do on similar technology, and we thought it would be cool to kind of just run through what a full hotel project will be with a singular machine, right? So it's one 1800 BG printer. It's the same printer we'll highlight at 3 o'clock this afternoon, right? So 12-inch by 24-inch area, vacuum table, 2-inch height clearance when the vacuum table is on there, and we printed them all on acrylic. Okay. All on P95 acrylic, right? Same type of material that we printed on yesterday. Same type of material that Lodge sample I just showed you. Very common in terms of material used in the sign world. Overall, there's 300 signs, and you see the breakdown there. There's 3 different sizes, right? You have room signs, stairwell signs, elevator signs, all with some level of raised elements on the front, right? Whether it's the room number, whether it's the stairwell pictogram or the elevator pictogram, and you see the sizes there. Full bleed second surface custom prints, okay? But there's 300 signs there. There's all that's all of them, right? So we try to keep them all consistent. We try to keep them with the right contrast, with the right spacing. You see nothing blows out to the edge of the sign there, and it's something that we had these on hand at this presentation, and people loved it. It was nice to be able to hand them around the room. But again, just keep in mind you had 260. The demand is 260 of the sign in the center, 30 signs on the stair sign on the right there, and then coming back across the elevator sign on the left. You need 10 of those, for our fictitious hotel project here. All of the signs, again, as I noted, were printed on the 1800 BG. I mentioned it before for the hotel example. We used $1.75 a square inch. You can see all of the print times and the ink cost per sign, right? You can see, some of the quick hitting signs, a little bit more in the vein of what we did yesterday, all the way to the bigger sign, right? The elevator sign is a big piece. You're not fitting many on the bed of this printer. 18 minutes a sign, but it's important to keep in mind that we are printing the full background, right? Most of these signs would be almost cut in half if we were just printing the fronts of them, maybe even less on the room signs, okay? But $1.75 a square inch for this example, you can see all the stats there. You roll all of that down in that same type of calculator, right? You're printing all of those signs. So all 300 signs are done in less than 40 hours of printing. You see it there, it's 37 hours. There's your net monthly profit in 1 week. After all the material costs, after all the production costs for the same acrylic that we showed yesterday, for the same type of acrylic that we showed in that Lodge sample above, and the photos before we got into kind of the meat and potatoes here. 62% of the total equipment cost done in 1 week, just based on that one project. Now we understand not everybody's going to walk into a hotel project, right? Some people might have it. If you're a sign shop, you might already have those connections. This was just used as a way to show, this isn't, a high rise, right? This is a modest 300 sign job, and it's done in under a week. And you see the kind of the profit potential that's there, right? And that includes your maintenance, that includes your ink, your material, your labor. The only thing it doesn't cover is obviously overhead in terms of a facility, electrical stuff like that. All right, very powerful stuff there.